I'm Sarah. This is episode 3, and we're going to talk about starting to sculpt with the wool. A little bit of technique, nothing specific, no specific animal, but just some of the shapes that you can make and techniques that you can use to start to basically sculpt. I think of wool as clay, and the needle, the felting needle, as you stab, it's kind of like your fingers, like if you were working with clay and pushing on it. And it's a sculpting method where, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you apply, you keep adding. And so it's better to keep things on the smaller, more manageable size because you can always add more. So we're going to zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing, and I will start showing you some technique. Okay, the first thing that I want to show you is how I wrap. Wrapping is pretty much how I start from an armature. This guy is mostly wrapped except for these like big Princess Leia buns on the side of his face. All of this is wrapping. So I would say wrapping is sort of the first technique. So I'm going to take some roving, and in this case I'm using my core wool, and I'm going to split it in half lengthwise to get a manageable piece. Let me show you on the skewer first before I work with the armature. You want to think of your roving as a ribbon that you want to keep flat and smooth. So as I wrap, I kind of give it a tug and I overlap the last wrap a little bit. And I'm keeping it flat and I'm keeping it smooth. So it's like I drill this in my classes, but the smoother and tighter you can wrap initially, the less needle felting you have to do, the more uniform it will look, and the less time you have to spend really. So that's a pretty nice, smoothly wrapped. If this were an armature, you do not want to do this. You don't want to hold your wool and go like this because you get these twists and bumps, unless you needed that effect for some reason. But anyway, think ribbon, think smooth, and think tight. So on an actual armature, this is the bunny armature that I made in episode 1. I'm just going to show you how it'd go down a leg to start, and then I'm going to move on to some other shapes. I anchor it at the top with my thumb, and then I just do what I just did on that skewer. I just wrap down. I go top to bottom. I had a guy helping me, and he liked to start at the foot and go up. That's fine. Which brings me to a point, actually. Everything that I'm showing you is stuff that I figured out or, taught myself, except there's 2 techniques that I use that somebody else told me about. But anyway, my point is, this is the way I do it. I know there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm just sharing with you, what I learned. Oh, right there. The sooner you can figure out that you need to pull some off, the better, the easier it is to pull off. So I just had a little too much. And so I'm just finishing it out on the foot. And then you can put it on the foam and just give it a couple of stabs. But it doesn't even need it. I mean, it just stays. If you wrap it tightly, it just stays. So once an armature is covered with wool by wrapping, it's time to start sculpting. And I start thinking about, where does the animal need dimension? So on the chipmunk, if you guys can see him, his cheeks, his forehead, his ears, his little chin, his muzzle. He's pretty linear everywhere else, but I think I gave him a belly. These are all shapes just created out of the roving. Usually I work on the foam. So a couple of these shapes that I use in so many different ways are this round biscuit shape. That's like what his cheeks are. I call this a ghost shape. It's like a Pac-Man ghost. This is a large one, but that's what the two sides of his muzzle are, a shape like this. Rectangles, triangles. I don't have a name for this. It's folded on one side and fringy on the other side. I use that a lot. And this is like a little seed, which, could be like an eyebrow. It could be a nose. Could be all kinds of things. So when you make these shapes, you need to think about, does it need to be really dimensional, really fluffy? Does it need to be flat? This shape that doesn't have a name, that's what we'll call it, shape without a name, is this piece. I do this on the larger animals, the horses, and sometimes even dogs, where the stifle connects to the body. That's what this is. So that's useful there. So in general, people tend to felt too much. So they'll make a shape and they'll stab it and stab it and stab it and stab it. And then next thing you know, it's as flat as a pancake. It doesn't have any dimension. And it's so felted that you can't work it into your sculpture without, it's too rigid. So those are just a couple things to think about. How to keep the dimension in it, how well felted it needs to be. If you leave things a little softer, then as you apply them to the sculpture, you can use the needle to shape it even further, to firm it up. And then sometimes you need to totally leave an edge. This is what I call a soft edge, where just the wool is very fringy. This would be a hard edge where it's felted well and rounded, and this is a soft edge. Sometimes you need to leave the soft edges because that's how it's going to attach or blend. Like for ears, this isn't an ear, but if this were in the shape of an ear, I would use those soft edges to attach it to the head or blend it to the head. So I'm just going to demonstrate making these shapes so you can get an idea. It's not complicated at all. This is the core roving. So I'm going to make the biscuit first. Depending on what you're making, it needs to be larger or smaller than this. But I just stab a little pea size in the center, and then I keep using the needle. I just keep teasing the edges into that same little pea area that I started with. And so the idea here is for it to be really thick and fluffy, not flat like a pancake. And then when you flip it over, you have your biscuit shape. So that gives a lot of dimension. That could be a cheek, either end cheek. And then this I use a lot, the ghost shape. So that starts out like, well, there's a couple different ways to do it. The ghost shape and shape without a name start out the same way. I put my wool vertically, like up and down on my foam, and then I make a line across the center, and then just fold the top over the bottom and felt. So if I just kept it flat, it would be like this. But if I want to round the edges, I start pulling those edges in and around. To round it out. I use this on, like I said, on a smaller level as the muzzle, or like on a pony or donkey, you know, to make their nice round haunches. You'll start to figure out when you look at something what's going to work best for that and what you need. The shape that I obliterated and flattened out was the rectangle. So to make a rectangle, this could be it could be a forehead, or it could be a shoulder muscle, just some of the ways I use it. I put the wool horizontally on my foam, and I felt up and down the center third, and then I fold each side into the center. Now I have a rectangle. Actually, what I use this a lot for, and I leave it loose on the ends because that's just going to blend into your piece better. I use this as a chest a lot on the foxes, sheep, anything that needs, you know, a more proud chest. What else? Oh, the triangle. Triangle. This could also get used on top of the head to create like a nose. I use this shape on the bunnies to go from their nose to back by their ears. If you made, you know, in your top colors that you're using, it could be an ear for anything really. Horse, fox, rabbit, just vary the shape a little bit. So to make a triangle, I put the wool horizontally on my foam, and then I felt up and down the center just to establish the center line, and then sometimes I fold the very end back a little bit to keep a little bit of thickness there. You don't want it to be too skinny and wimpy. And then just like a paper airplane, you fold these sides in. And your triangle might need to be really wide. It might need to be, you know, short and skinny, or like really long and skinny. If I were making a rabbit ear, I would continue to pull this in down at the bottom to bring it back to, you know, more like an almond shape. And again, I leave these fibers loose. Well, that was a bad rabbit ear because I didn't start out that way, but anyway, you get the idea of how the triangle can be lots and lots of different things. So I think I covered all of the shapes. I hope that helps you guys kind of think about how to apply them, you know, when you look at an animal, and you can start to see what's what. Oh, I didn't talk about the seed. Where's the seed? To make the seed, it's just like a little sunflower seed, almond kind of shape, sunflower kernel. That's just a tuft of wool rolled in my hands. You roll it like Play-Doh, round and round, like you're making, you know, a ball of Play-Doh. And then at the end, just roll back and forth in one direction. I'm really pressing. You have to press really hard to get the wool to stick. And then that's how you do that. But that's, I mean, that's what his eyebrows are, and, you know, these little spots under his eyes. And so those are just some of the most common shapes. So I hope that going over those shapes helped you guys understand how the sculptures are built up just using these simple shapes. There's a couple of more techniques that I want to show in the next video, especially if you're not using an armature, ways to create shapes. One is using a skewer, and the other is using a knot and wrapping around the knot. So next time I will cover that. Thanks so much. I hope you guys will visit Sarafina Fiber Art to see more animals and see what's available. Thanks. Bye.